Hi, I'm Melissa. I love concerts. I am a concert junkie, and also I love tattoos. I have quite a few. I have 5 cats who are my children. I love them. I like riding roller coasters. I love going to karaoke. I was like, maybe it's an allergy, and nothing was working. I was putting cortisone cream on it, and just nothing was working. I ended up developing a rash. I got a really bad rash. It was apparently very common with lymphoma. It started around my belly button, and I thought I was like allergic to the metal in my belt buckle. And then it started going down my back and my legs. And I was like, maybe I'm allergic to my laundry soap. Maybe I'm allergic to my body wash. So I started switching everything to unscented. I was like, maybe it's an allergy. And nothing was working. I was putting cortisone cream on it and stuff like that, and just nothing was working. I didn't want to ever do anything. All I wanted to do was come home and sleep. And I wasn't like sleepy tired. I was just drained. I was going to bed super early. I was taking naps, and yeah, it big time. And that rash, it didn't hurt, it itched, and there was nothing I could do to make the itching stop. So the first time it was actually in my left breast, it had started, and it was rapid. So the kind of cancer I had is very aggressive and it grows very quickly. So it went from like, there's kind of a little weird lump there to, oh my goodness, it's like twice the size of the other within a couple of months. So I went to my primary doctor, and she told me I had an infection and gave me some antibiotics, ran some blood work, and sent me home. Um, she even joked at one point and asked if I had a breast implant in one side, because it was so much larger. And I was like, not the time for that. And then it got worse. They did a CAT scan and they were like, hey, it's not an infection. Go have this biopsied like yesterday. So I went and had it biopsied. They put the giant biopsy needle in there. And I heard back about a week later and was told it was cancer. And I started crying my eyes out. It was a weird moment. I was getting ready for work. It was a Monday morning. I was just getting dressed, and I get a phone call, and it was from Virginia Oncology Associates. And they were like, we need to schedule you an appointment. And I was like, may I ask why? And they were like, oh, have you not talked to the surgeon yet? And I said, no, I hadn't heard from him yet. And they were like, oh, like it was kind of an awkward conversation. And so then as I'm on the phone with them, I get a call from the surgeon. So I'm like, hey, they're calling. And he calls, doesn't tell me have me come into the office, tells me over the phone. He's like, it's not breast cancer, but you do have this other type of cancer. And I was like, it took a minute. And I was like, I have what? Like, and then the tears just absolutely started. And I went to my mom's house and shared the news. And that was really hard too, just telling people. I knew lymphoma like was a type of cancer, but I didn't know specifics about it. I didn't know the specifics about that particular kind. I was no expert, right? So, people know cancer exists, but other than like the ins and outs of the different types of them, that's not common knowledge. So I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know if I was going to make it. I didn't know if I was going to be okay. I didn't know what kind of treatment. Like I knew nothing. It was called EPOC R. And yeah, it was 24 hours a day, uh, 24-hour bags, huge bright orange bags of chemo. And I did that for 4 days. And they would give me 15 minutes off. in between each bag so I could take a shower. And then I would get back, hooked back up, get the pre-meds, get hooked back up to the chemo. And I had to do that. And then I would get 2 weeks off. So I would do that for 4 days. I would do a day of Rituxan, which is the immunotherapy. And then I would go home for 2 weeks, and then I would go back and do it again. And 6 times I had to do that. After each round, they gave me this shot called Neulasta, which is supposed to boost your immune system, and it causes bone pain, which for me felt like every bone in my body breaking at the same time because it squeezes the like extra like white blood cells out of your bone marrow. And you can feel it, and it hurts really, really badly. And I took pain medicine. I tried nothing touched it. After the chemo, I did 20 rounds of radiation. Every scan, I was terrified. Anytime I got a rash, anytime I would notice like just anything off, anything that kind of triggered in my head, I freaked out. I actually ended up getting another lump on my right breast at one point. And so I went to the surgeon. It turned out just to be a fibroid. Everything was fine. But every little everything, I was terrified. I tried not to let it overwhelm me too much. I would get really, really nervous right before a scan. Like a week or two before I knew I was getting a scan, I was like freaking out that something was going to show up. Something was going to show up. And nothing ever did. Anytime I would see like the results, I was always like, what does this mean? What does that mean? Like, is this bad? It was hard to tell myself that I was fine because the first time I wasn't. A couple of days before Christmas, I started noticing a really painful lump under my right armpit. I was like, I'm gonna go. I'll go to the emergency room and have it checked out. They did nothing. They didn't scan it. They didn't test it. Didn't do blood work. They did nothing. I waited like 4 hours in the emergency room for the doctor to walk in for about 45 seconds and say, "Go see your surgeon." So I'd had a scan probably about a year before this, maybe 8 months, something like that. So at that point, there was nothing. But again, this disease pops up very quickly and grows very quickly. So it could be nothing 1 week, and a month later, there it is. So I was still hopeful, even though it was still in the back of my mind, like maybe. I mean, it still could be, but I was past the 5 years. You're supposed to be cured, and I was at almost 6 years. So I got it on the my chart, like we were talking about, and I was at work. And I got a thing that was just like, hey, you have new test results. And I was like, oh, let me go look at it like a dummy, even though I'm sitting in the middle of my office. So I open it and I'm reading it, and I'm like, this can't be right. Is this my old test results? Like I'm thinking that it was like from the previous biopsy, right? And I'm like, I saw the date and it was a current date, and then I broke down right in front of my boss. I was afraid they would find something. Other than that, I tried not really hard not to think about it too much. I didn't want to let it, because then it would just eat you alive, right? Like if you're constantly thinking about it and constantly worried, like, oh, am I going to get it again? Am I going to get it again? It's gonna eat you alive. They said it, keep an eye out for, the symptoms that you had. And they also said that relapse occurs mostly within the first 2 years. They said it's possible to come back after that, but the first 2 years that's like the critical time. So why, like I get scans every 6 months for that first 2 years because that is the most likely. I was crying the whole time. Um, yeah, I was absolutely crying the whole time and scared, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I didn't know the treatment, what would happen with that. Was it going to be as brutal? Was it going to be more aggressive because it was a second time? And that's all I was thinking about, was just how is this going to progress? At night, I'd be laying with my husband and I would just break down and be like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This isn't fair. At the end of the day, it was like I wasn't ready to die, pretty much. So I was like, I'm going to do whatever the doctor tells me to do, no matter how bad it sucks, and I'll get through it. I've still got lots of life left to live. I had a couple of really close friends that were very supportive. My sister as well. My older sister lives 20 minutes from me. She is my absolute best friend in the entire world. So she was there, like when I did chemo the first time, like she was there in the hospital almost every morning with me because I would see the doctor in the mornings, and we would have a list of questions, and she would come in and we would talk to them together. When the second time when I did like the stem cell transplant, she was there all the time. She is my ride or die. I love her to death. So I talked to Dr. Berko first, and he was like, this is going to be your best, your best option, your best course of treatment. Because not everybody qualifies for that. There's a couple of different, um, like second line treatments for relapse, and stem cell is one of them. And they were like, we feel like you're a good candidate for it. Your body is strong enough to handle it. So we want you to do this. And we think it's your best chance of getting rid of this for good. He introduced me to the new doctor that took over from there, who is also wonderful. His name is Dr. Simmons. Amazing man. He's very detailed. Anytime we went over anything, he would write it out. He drew charts, and which I'm a very visual person, so I always appreciated his charts and things. Yeah. So the process itself was something. They had to do a bone marrow biopsy to test to make sure my stem cells and things were cancer free and good to use. So they had to put a giant needle in my back, and because that's where your stem cells are primarily kept, is right here in your hip. So I had to get a big needle in the back. They tested it; everything was fine. I had to have my entire body, head to toe, examined. I had to get a dental clearance. I had to get my lungs checked, my heart checked, my organs checked, my eyes checked. Like everything had to get checked to make sure that my body was strong enough to handle the chemo and the transplant. So when you do the transplant, they do 6 days of high dose chemo to wipe out your stem, because the transplant is basically like a restart. So I had to do the 6 days. So you have to make sure your body can handle that, because it's hard. I was really, really, really sick. And it wipes your immune system, your red blood cells, your white blood cells. You have nothing. Platelets. And then they put themselves in. So you sit in a room. You can't leave for like 6 hours. They hook you up to this machine. I had to get a big catheter put in my chest. So I had the port on one side, and then they had to put this big catheter with tubes hanging out on this side, which I had that for weeks beforehand. So it had to like be covered in this big bandage. So when I'd have to shower, I'd have to like cover it in plastic, and it was a whole thing. So you sit in this room, and they hook you up to this big machine. It takes your blood out. So it has two tubes. So one tube, the blood comes out, goes through the machine, it takes out the stem cells, and then the other, they put the blood back. And then it takes them a few weeks. They have to test the stem cells, make sure they're good to use, make sure they have enough. If you don't have enough, you have to go back another day. You have to go back a second day or third day or however many days until they get enough. And then they monitor you in the hospital for a while. I was there for 2.5 weeks total. So I went to physical therapy and a chiropractor for several months to try to regain some strength and fix my back. I had to basically quarantine away for a while because I had almost no immune system until it started rebuilding. So I had to stay away from people. I was on antibiotics. I was on so many medications. I had actually just got to stop taking an antiviral. So about a week and a half ago was the 1 year anniversary of my transplant. It was on July 8th. And they said I had to take this antiviral for a year. So I don't, that's one less pill I have to take, which yay. So I had to take the antiviral and and then something they don't, or I didn't know originally that I found out in the process, when you do a stem cell transplant, it resets your immunity. I had to get all of my immunizations all over again. Your baby shots, your toddler shots, I had to do them all over again, starting 6 months after the transplant. I ended up losing my job. I tried to do the treatment and work, and I was missing so much time because I got so sick from the treatment. I lost my job. So I was out of work for a little over a year. I only just started working again about 2 months ago. And it's hard. I tried. The first time around, because of the intensity of the treatment, there was no way I didn't even attempt to work for that. But the second time I tried, and I was so sick, and there was no way. But yeah, there's things outside of just treatment that isn't talked about enough when it comes, and especially afterwards. Like when you finish treatment, that's not the end of it. Like there's still challenges, you're still sick. You're still dealing with doctor's appointments. You're still dealing with bills, and you got medical bills, and even with insurance, medical bills can get crazy. Just navigating life, like I said, I had to, with no immune system, I would be afraid to leave my house, because a cold could have taken me out. I actually went through a pretty deep depression for a little while after I finished chemo. Everybody's like, "Oh, you should be happy, celebrating," but because I was confined, I was confined to just here for so long. I couldn't go out. People were like, "Oh, I'm going to do this and all these fun things," and I'm, you know, just living. And here I am, just stuck being a bump on a log, can't really do anything. And yeah, I went to a really deep depression for a little while afterwards. And once I was finally started rebuilding and started getting my immune system back and being able to venture out a little more, I came out of it, and now I'm just enjoying and live life to the absolute fullest. I go out as much as I can. I see my friends. I see my family. I do everything that I can. I appreciate things more. I appreciate my friends. I appreciate my family. I just appreciate being able to go to the grocery store more than I used to. Just being able to do even normal everyday things. When you have a time where you can't do those things, it means a lot more. And like I said, now my bucket list things, things that I've always wanted to do, much higher priority in my life now. During treatment, life sucks. You're going to be sick. There's really no way around it. They give you all kinds of medications and things to try and help with the side effects, but it's going to suck. You're going to be tired. You're going to be sick. There's really nothing, but just know that there is an end to it all. It gets better. You come out the other side, and you can live and have most people will have a fully different appreciation for life. And I definitely did. Don't give up. You have to be your own advocate, because nobody else will. And it sucks that it's the truth, but especially in the emergency room and things like that, they got to get you in and out, right? So you don't always get the best, but if you feel like something is up, and even though they tell you you're fine, if you feel that there's still something up, you gotta see a different doctor. Go, do something else. You have to be your own advocate, because you know you better than anybody else knows you. I'm living proof of that.